auditorium theater, and it's the Arc.
No,
Know about the Arc. The Pelty.
Healthy auditorium theater.
I'm ready when you are. Mr. Bird, Aaron Gold is going to be front stage, Mike up. Bring the house. I'm ready for the spot. Ready, go. Bring the spot on, please.
Bring the house out. Though.
House lights now.
Alan B.
Let's set our clocks back about 15-20 years when our television sets were tuned to the Ed Sullivan Show on Sunday evenings. If you were one of those viewers, you were fortunate enough to catch the comedian Alan King. Since those days, he's ventured into all facets of entertainment, from writing and directing to producing to actually appearing on stage and in front of the motion picture camera. While he's in town for the benefit performance for the Arc, we were fortunate to grab an interview with him here in the Auditorium Theater in the dressing room. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
First, what I want to know, I want to go into your roots. You were raised on the Lower East Side and Manhattan and also the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn. How do you weave that rich background into your comedy routines? Or is it that background that brings you here to do these benefit performances?
Well, it has a lot to do with it, but you are the sum total of what you were raised as. And, I guess that's really what's most important. I tried doing other things when I was a young fellow. I remember one time I was offended by a review when I played the Paramount Theater with Harry James Orchestra. It was my first Broadway review, and they said, funny young comedian, don't know how he'll do west of the Hudson. What they were calling me was a Jew comic. And I was very upset by that, and then I started trying to be what I wasn't. But it always, Hemingway once said, you only write about what you know about. That's what I talk about.
Well, do you consider yourself a Jewish comedian or a comedian that happens to be Jewish?
Well, I'm a comedian who not happens to be Jewish, who is. I think it was ordained 4,000 years ago that I would be.
I was out in Washington testifying about a year ago with Norman Lear and a whole group of us, and we met Jerry Falk. And he presented me with the 91 points of the moral judge. And he told me that if you do not agree with the 91 points, you're not a good Christian. I didn't need Jerry Falwell to tell me this. I knew it 8 days after I was born. Some guy came in with a beard, with a razor. That was it. I'd like to find that son of a bitch wherever.
No, I don't know what a Jewish comic would be. I don't know. Menashe Skolnick was a Jewish comedian. Leo Fuchs was a Jewish comedian. No, but as I said, I use my ethnic background as what's very important.
Do you weave that into your comic routines?
Always. I can't think like a guy. Very difficult.
The guy should have failed, I would have got a hernia, but here tonight is definitely a killer if I lift this thing up.
Some roots questions now. You also played at the Catskills. You had an apprenticeship there. What is it about the Catskills? What is the magic of the Catskills that launched so many successful comedians' careers?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I am right now in the middle of preparing a major film for Warner Brothers called Why Go Further, which is based on a book called Summer on a Mountain of Spices, and my own memoirs, my own recollections of my youth in the mountains, and I'm making it into a film. But it's kind of a picture that you don't have to be Jewish to eat Levy's rye bread. You won't have to be Jewish to watch my film. And I don't think the Catskill Mountains has been captured. They tried it in Marjorie Morningstar, quite poorly. And this is a story about a 15-year-old boy. The summer of 45, my summer was the summer of 42, but we're using 45 because it was an incredible time. The war in Europe ended, the bomb was dropped in Hiroshima, and the war in Japan ended. So nobody in my picture in the world would never be the same. So I've been working on it for almost a year. We're going to shoot it this summer in the Catskill Mountains.
Have you been able to capture that same spirit?
I don't know, but I hope so.
Yeah.
Hope to. But we're doing it as a foreign film almost. When I say foreign film, it's what Louis Malle did with Atlantic City. I'm working, we can't announce the director yet, but I hope and I'm sure will be a director who does not know the Catskill Mountains. Because someone who knows, the screenplay is being written by myself and Bruce Fierstein, who has a best-selling book out now called Real Men Don't Eat Quiche. He doesn't know the Catskill Mountains. He has a Jewish flavor. He understands it, has a background. But with all due respect, it's not the kind of picture I'd want Mel Brooks to direct. You see. It's not that kind of a film.
Do you remember your very first stand-up joke? And did it go over the way you had hoped it would?
No, I couldn't remember that.
How about your first stand-up night?
No, I couldn't. I started when I was about 8, 9 years old, working local social clubs, B'nai B'rith, Nights at Pythias, social clubs. I did amateur hours. So I can't really remember the first. I remember many nights where it didn't go. In fact, last Tuesday in Houston.
They still let you come here tonight. At 17, you became a regular at Leon and Eddie's nightclub.
A little early. I was about 16, yeah.
Now that's awfully young. How did your parents react to that? Were they concerned or did they encourage you?
No. There was no concern. First, it was done very clandestine. I was one of a large family, and nice Jewish boys didn't go into show business, but the fact that Al Jolson and Eddie Cantor and Georgia Jessel were all Jewish. No, my family, first of all, they had no theatrical background whatsoever. But being the youngest and looking for a place in the sun, so to speak, and coming from the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn, which was quote-unquote a ghetto. I didn't know it was a ghetto until I got very old. But it was a very, poor neighborhood. It was a depression.
Your parents themselves were Polish and Russian immigrants.
Yeah. Polish, Russian, and so I just was looking for attention, I guess, and singing in the backyards and doing dances on street corners and going to the movies and doing impressions when I came back. So it wasn't, I started when I was with Major Bowles when I was 12, which was the summer of my mother's discontent. My mother, until this day, right now, my mother's 86 years old, and she still thinks I have another job. She doesn't believe that I can make a living doing this.
Well, as quick as you are on your feet, I've seen you on the Johnny Carson, so you just punch them out. You were just as quick on your feet in the boxing ring. This is one side of your personality people don't know about. You boxed for a while in Canada.
Well, that was another reason of getting out. Again, looking for recognition, looking for a place.
Did you seriously consider boxing?
I did. I won. I had 11 straight fights that I won. The 12th I lost, and that was when I decided there's another way to make a living. It was just also was part of the aggression of growing up, and frustrated as I was. So boxing was an example. All sports, And we now have it with the minorities and the ethnic groups now. It's a way out, you see. And so it was just to me, it was just a natural evolution.
Another thing you beat on besides Jaws were drums. You started Earl Knight and the Musical Knights. I get a kick out of the name of the play.
The first band I worked with was a band called Leshinsky's Bluebirds. And that's going to be the name of the band in my movie.
Big draw at that time, too.
Leshinsky's Bluebirds.
At that time, did you know you wanted to be in show business?
I wanted attention. I'm sure it was terrific to stand up there and be loved and everybody applauding and paying you money for it. Was an incredible way to make a living.
Did you have a mentor, or was it your God-given ability to make people laugh that kept you going?
Well, I've had many mentors, many people that were helpful to me, all the way up, even till now. Well, I guess I started, my mother's brother was a vaudeville fan. He started taking me to vaudeville shows when I was very young, and he was a frustrated comedian, and he lived in a house with my mother, and so he was a kind of a smart alecky kind of guy, funny guy, wonderful guy. And my father didn't understand what I wanted to do, but he understood that I wanted to do something besides working a machine, or cutting leather goods as he did. And so my father was very helpful. My mother and her family were very, very suspicious of what I was doing.
You're still sending your resumes out.
Yeah, no, they were very suspicious. They didn't trust They made it very difficult for me when I was a kid. But when you're a kid and you feel that you're doing right, you just do it.
Since your stand-up comedian days, you've ventured into all facets of the entertainment industry. You've been a producer for Broadway, A Line in Winter, which was critically acclaimed. You also were Nathan Detroit on Guys and Dolls. You've been in films. Your latest is Lovesick. You also were an author. What is your favorite medium?
I don't think I have a favorite medium. That's why I jump around as much. I'm not bored easily. It's that each form takes on another excitement for me. So it's what I'm doing at the time I'm doing is my favorite.
Beyond your obsession with the entertainment industry, you have another one. I believe it's food. When I was in New York about a year ago, I saw lots of articles about you and being raised on Jewish food. You came out with a book, Help, I'm a Prisoner in a Chinese Bakery. And I believe in your last film, Lovesick, you broke character from that staunchy doctor, and when someone announced there was food, you said, "Thank God I'm starved." Are you obsessed with food?
Mm-hmm. I'm doing a food book right now. It'll be out next Christmas with Mimi Sheridan, who's the food critic of the New York Times. And it's not a cooking book. It's just that I find I'm a man who has searched the world over for pleasures. And one of them is food. I think also it's very artistic. It's very creative. I think it's great therapy. It's the only time, with all the things that I do, I find that when I'm behind the stove or in front of the stove and playing tennis are about the only two times that I really find that my mind is totally on what I'm doing.
Do you have a favorite dish you cook yourself?
Well, I cook. I do a lot of cooking.
They say shitterang.
Shitterang, that's what my mother always said. And in fact, I didn't enjoy Jewish cooking until much later in my life because I was raised on it. It was shoved in my ears and my nose, And it was, eat because they're starving in Europe. And then I ate everything, and they were still starving in Europe, and I was a fat kid. So I treat Jewish cooking now as an art form. My mother was not a great artist. I mean, I'm sorry to say this.
What were you raised on?
I was raised on everything. A lot of Kaiser rolls, egg salads, and a lot of meat that had cooked for about 4 days.
Oh, yeah.
It had to be, my mother didn't even understand what gray was. It had to be black. So,
I can picture that soup meat.
oh yeah, everything. It was just totally tasteless, but it was very, very nourishing, and there was always food on the table, and the house was always clean, and there was always a tablecloth.
As much attention as you've given to food, you've also given a lot of attention to your philanthropic duties. Beyond the Nassau Center for the Emotionally Disturbed Children, you also set up the Alan King Diagnostic Medical Center, as well as establishing a fund, a non-sectarian fund, for American students at Hebrew University. What prompted this fervent kind of interest in Israel?
Everything we've been talking about. I mean, it's my Jewishness, and paying a little back, I hate to quote the New Testament, but it has to do with casting your bread on the water.
Go ahead.
I've just done it.
What does Israel do for you when you go there?
Oh, it's not only when I go there, it's just I was raised as a boy during the Depression. We lived in my grandfather's house. My parents had to give up their apartment. My grandfather was a Zionist, and although I don't think he understood what the word Zionist means or meant, but he wanted a homeland, and I was raised with that little blue and white pushka or pishka, according to what part of Europe you come from. And, if there was a few pennies in the house, a couple of those pennies went into the box for the Jewish National Fund at that time, Palestine. Right. So I was raised with this, and then, of course, a child of the, growing up during World War II and the Holocaust, not as, although my family was very fortunate they left Europe in the early 1900s, but that identification, with the Holocaust was just carved into my head, And so the pride, even though there are many things that they do in Israel that I don't agree with, and I fight with the politicians all the time, but I think that's part of being Jewish and also part of a democracy. So it gives me great pride, great pride. It's very selfish too, very personal.
How's it selfish?
Well, because it gives me such pleasure to see it grow, and when they have problems, the problems are reflected in my feelings.
Let's go back to your entertaining career. In 1956, you toured with Judy Garland. You appeared with her at the Palace Theater.
Right
You
here,
toured-
in 1958, right on the stage at the Auditorium Theater.
It was right here.
Right here in this theater. In this dress room was where I dressed.
Really?
I hadn't been back since 58, which give you an idea what a big hit I must have been. Yeah, right here with Judy Garland.
You ended up touring with her in the United States and Great Britain in front of the Queen. What do you remember best about Judy Garland?
Well, if I was given a Rorschach test, it would be her laughter. She had a tremendous laugh. For a woman that was so problem, so disturbed in many ways, she had an incredible sense of humor. And she, although she hated performing, as I'm sure everybody knows about Judy, she had a great fear of going on stage. She just was a very loving. She loved everything about the theater. She loved other acts. She was very kind to other performers and very concerned about other performers. Only getting her out on stage every night was a big.
Did you help?
Many nights. Many nights she didn't go out there. But she was probably, and I have seen, I guess in 40 some odd years as a professional, I would say unequivocally she was the pound for pound, and I don't mean that to be facetious because she got very heavy at a point in her life. She's the best entertainer I ever saw.
The best.
The
And the
best.
best one you worked with?
Oh, I guess I worked with all of them. I worked with Jolson when I was a kid. I mean, I did more. I saw Jolson. She was by far the best. I just got a big kick. I was in Texas for a benefit for Cancer Fund, and Liza Minnelli was on the bill. And I've seen Liza many times, but I was never in the wings. And I stood in the wings and watched Liza, and I saw a lot of her mother and a lot of her father. She comes from pretty talented parents. And it was, again, very touching for me.
Taste of nostalgia.
Oh, yeah. And also she's so good.
You mentioned how much you enjoyed working with Judy Garland, but is there any entertainer you've never worked with that you've always wanted to work with?
No, strangely enough. I'm just trying to think. All of my favorites have become my favorite by appearing with them, which becomes even more important than watching them from out front. No, I guess I've appeared with everybody, including Pavarotti and Placido and
Can you sing?
Sinatra, and I've worked with them all. Sammy Davis. I have many. Oh, I'm sure in the past I would have liked to have, worked with some of the greats of the past, but I think in the last, the contemporary stars, I've appeared with, I guess, almost all of them.
I mentioned in the introduction the Ed Sullivan Show. What did appearing on the Ed Sullivan Show do for your career?
Oh, well, it gave me national recognition and exposure. Oh, I was on the Ed Sullivan Show 83 times. The only reason I know it's 83 times is there's a book out now called The Sullivan Years, where some foolish young man took years to gather that kind of information. So that's how I knew I was up. Yeah, it was a tremendous vehicle for me. Up until that time, I've been doing quite well. I've been touring, working with opening the shows for a lot of great stars. But Sullivan, and then being on almost every 6 weeks, for almost 20 years. And then, of course, I left Sullivan. I spent 6 years with Gary Moore. But Sullivan was the first real national exposure.
I remember. People insist I wouldn't remember, but I remember seeing you on the Ed Sullivan. I remember my grandmother's little apartment.
I get that all the time. I get somebody comes over me 70 years old and says, when I was a kid, I saw you on the Ed Sullivan Show. I want to wrap him in the mouth.
That's good. Okay, you're someone who thinks quick on his feet, and I mentioned that in the boxing ring, on stage. Have you ever been caught off guard by an interviewer?
No, not that I can remember. I've been caught off guard many times. But no. I've been offended. I've been offended by questions that have been asked, but no. It's what I do for a living.
About your film roles. In Lovesick, I mentioned your staunchy, stuffy doctor who says you like to weed out the bad apples. That hardly sounds like the Alan King I've been researching. In Author, though, you play a producer.
That was
Jewish
much closer.
producer. How much of Alan King was in that
Well, I
film?
think a lot of Alan King, or any actor, is in some of the parts, although I played, I spent about 10 years playing hoodlums, gangsters, and mafia chiefs and things like that. I guess there's a little gangster in all of us too, especially if you're raised in the streets, or an understanding of them. But Kreplak, who was the producer in Author, was a character that I knew very well. A little bit of me and a little bit of some of my associates.
Your latest attraction, your latest release, no applause could substitute the joy this latest release has given you, your grandson.
Oh, now you want to talk got all day?
I understand he calls you Papa, but...
Pop-Up.
Pop-Up. Why do you call him E.T.?
Because he doesn't talk too much. He just points his finger and goes, you know, bye, you know, so we gave him the name E.T.
What does being with your grandchildren do for you?
Well, it's great fun. It's a wonderful feeling. I know this is cliche, but I didn't realize it. I think you get more joy out of your grandchildren than you do out of your own kids, because when they get out of line, I say to his mother, you know, hey, take them away, you know. You know, and then he goes home and sleeps in his own house.
It's temporary.
So it's kind of toy. It's kind of a little toy. But he's a delightful kid.
When your grandchildren are able to understand, you know, when they're able to talk besides pointing, what are you going to tell them about your background, the Lower East Side, Williamsburg?
Oh, it's going to be very difficult. I think my grandson has a better chance to identify with my background and my Jewishness than my kids did, because you know, every time when my kids were growing up, and and you find yourself saying things you swore you would never say. When I was your age, I was selling newspapers, and all of a sudden, you know, my kids, my two boys, would look at each other. Oh, he's going on to do his thing. They used to say, he's doing his thing now. You know, that I worked, and it was very difficult growing up in a very affluent house to appreciate, understand. I took them back. They've seen it. They were bar mitzvah. They belonged to Temple, but I think what my grandson will have is the years of material that have been collected, the books. I don't think that my son's generation, they thought all Jewishness was Philip Roth. I'm a big Philip Roth. There seemed to be a period there where we made fun of it, and I think we should make fun of it, because we are I think one of the great things about our people is the fact that we are so amusing. And sometimes you don't mean to be, but we instinctively are amusing people, funny people, and I mean this with great love. But I think now there's a sort of a renaissance of stories and books about you know, these people that my parents, my grandparents, and their contribution to American society. And there seems to be, hopefully, I think there's a renaissance about people going back to their roots 2-3 generations later.
Do you think,
wanting some identification?
with all the synagogues, it's easier these days. It's easier, in some ways harder to be Jewish. We're a very secular society. In ways, do you think your upbringing was even richer, growing up in what you called that ghetto of the Lower East Side?
I think my kids being taken by station wagon to school every day and having to hire friends to play with them was nowhere near as much fun as I had. I mean, growing up in so-called the streets of New York. No, I mean, I feel sorry for them.
You are an international comedy attraction. Where some comedy doesn't work elsewhere, it works here in the United States. I tried explaining what Mr. Bill was from Saturday Night Live, and foreigners just couldn't understand what was so funny about it. But you are an international attraction. What do you think accounts for that?
The only places I play is where the language, you know, where English is spoken. But I've had a long love affair with England. I've just come back. But it's the English language. They invented it. I mean, if you're going to talk about something like a guy hitting an infield grounder, or you know, or certain things that are just totally generic to America, they won't understand. But if you talk about wives and kids and doctors and insurance companies and the frustrations of life.
An example. The dinner I told you I went to in Palm Springs. My wife and I, flying back to New York. From Palm Springs you fly to Dallas, you change planes, you go to New York. It's 112 people on the plane. There's a DC-8. We'd start to taxi away from the gate, and we'd hear a noise, more than a noise, like a 6 on the whip to scale. And everybody panics, you know, everybody gets so uptight. Woman across the aisle takes out the rosary bead. And I said, lady, please, you don't need them. We're only 8 feet from the gate. Why don't you save them when we're at 35,000 feet? Maybe they're only good for one shot.
As long as it's not, as I said, something that is so inside that only we could. But we have things in the United States where people in the Midwest don't know what we're talking about in New York, or vice versa.
Yeah. You never stop. You started on you started Earl Knight in his musical Nights. You're a stand-up comic, you're a producer, you're an actor, and the list goes on. You're a grandfather. What keeps Alan King going? You say you're getting tired. For some reason, I know we're going to see your name in marquee again, and we're going to see you on stage even longer. What keeps you going, attracting the audiences?
Well, I don't like to think of it as keeping, keep going. Well, first, I love what I'm doing, which makes me very lucky. Most people don't love what they're doing. I could never understand how people could get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and go to a job they hate. Yeah. These are the most courageous people I know. I've been lucky. I've been able to do what I want, doing the things that I want to do. So I find no reason to slow up. I mean, every day's an adventure, especially in the creative arts. So I keep doing it.
I want to thank your multi-talented Alan King, the producer, the actor, and the list goes on. But more importantly, I heard this before I came in here, but I never go by hearsay. More importantly, you're a real mensch. And thank you so much.
Good word, mensch. I love that word.
Thank you. That was great.
You don't know how enjoyable it is for me to use these words. It's outrageous. It really is. The whole world's crazy. The whole world's crazy. On television, everybody wants to be all things to all men. We're losing our sense of humor. An example of we have a thing now called the moral majority. They are now the guardians of what we watch on television. I was out of Washington testifying about a year ago with Norman Lear and a whole group of us, and we met Jerry Palmer. And he presented me with the 91 points of the moral majority. And he told me that if you do not agree with the 91 points, you're not a good Christian. I didn't need Jerry Falwell to tell me this. I know it 8 days after I was born. Some guy came in with a beard, with an eraser,